It is now being recorded. That's why I have that in there, to remind myself to record. I apologize. As we are participating remotely, please note that all votes will be taken by roll call vote. I will state the member's name and ask for their vote for each vote necessary today. Just to let everybody know who's in the room or on the phone. As I mentioned, myself, Chair Christine Hoyt, Selectman John Duval, and Selectman Joe Novak, Town Administrator Jay Green, Attorney St. John, Deb Dunlap, Admin Assistant for the Town Administrator and the Board of Selectmen. We do have guest Water District Superintendent John Barrett. We do have Northern Berkshire Community Television recording and covering this live on channel 1303 for us. Crystal Wojcik, who we'll get to on the agenda. Aaron Girgenti, also on the agenda, so we'll get to that. Media outlets, Scott Stafford and Jack Garino. And it looks like we have a member of the public, Howard Rosenberg. I think that I have everybody so far. Okay. Oh, and it looks like another member of the public is calling in, and that is Stephanie Melito. I do ask that you please keep yourself muted until it is time to speak, just to cut down on any background noise. And with all of that, I will ask all of you to please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to
to
the flag
of the
of the United States of America
and to the
and
republic
to the republic
for which it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one
one nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and we'll move into the approval of minutes. In front of the board this evening are the minutes for the February 11th workshop and the February 17th meeting. And all members of the board are able to vote on these minutes.
Madam Chair, I need to abstain from February 11th.
Oh, you do. I'm so sorry. That is correct. Yep. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't listed on the attendance.
Yeah.
All right. So in that case, I think we could still move forward with those with just two of us voting. Is that correct? Okay. Good. Joe, would you like to make a motion to approve the minutes for February 11th?
Yes, I'll do that. I'll make a motion to accept the workshop minutes from February 11th
Okay.
as submitted.
Okay. I will second that motion. And then any discussion? Hearing none, it is a roll call vote. John, you'll be
I'll abstain.
Joe?
Yes.
And it is a yes from Christine. So it does pass with 2 in favor. So we have the February 17th minutes. Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting minutes, February 17th, 2021, and waive the reading of the minutes.
Okay. I have a motion by John. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
It is a yes from Christine, so that is unanimous. That brings us to public comment. I will open things up to anyone on this call who wishes to speak to the Board of Selectmen about a matter. I just ask that you unmute yourself and state your name and address. and I'll give it another minute. Okay. Hearing nothing, I will go ahead and close public comment for this evening. And we will start under new business. And as I mentioned, we do have Superintendent of the Water District, John Barrett, with us this evening. And he's going to talk to us about the hydrant maintenance. This seems to be a topic in some of our neighboring communities, and thought it would be a good time and a good reminder of kind of the health of our infrastructure here that falls under the Water District. So John, go ahead and take it away.
Yes, thank you for having me. We have approximately 367 hydrants in service on our system. 2 of them are actually out of service right now. That is it. And honestly, there is active hydrants within 50 feet of these 2 hydrants that are out of service. One is at the intersection of Melrose Street, and the other one is actually in front of 45 and 52 Columbia Street. As I said, rule of thumb is usually a working hydrant within 350 to 500 feet. So these hydrants, there's new hydrants within 100 feet of these hydrants that are out of service. One we're actually going to be removing this summer. The other one we actually will be replacing, that is atop of Melrose Street. We had every year after we flush, anytime a hydrant is utilized, whether it's been permitted or not, we actually inspect the hydrant afterwards. We do a lot of things during the inspection. We lubricate all the caps. We check for groundwater. We do any operator maintenance that has been noted while we flushed, as all of our operators flush, which is how we can see if there's a problem with a hydrant. When we do the inspections every summer after flushing or anytime a hydrant's utilized, we always note and put on if there's groundwater infiltration into the barrel. So if we note that there's groundwater, we pump it. We also then note if it returns. So if it returns, we end up putting that on a groundwater list. The groundwater list, which we had 11 hydrants on this year. That groundwater list, we go back, and in the winter time, we again do leak detection, and that's when we actually inspect all of our hydrants again for the second time. We don't do any maintenance on the hydrants per se when we check them the second time. However, we always do check for groundwater and to see if they're freezing. So more often than not, hydrants that had groundwater in them during the summer, as I said previously, there was 11 this year. We will check them first, and then if they are frozen, we actually have a thawing machine. This year, we only had 2 hydrants that were frozen in our system out of 365 active hydrants. One hydrant was on Lower Linden Street. That's a perpetual problem there. When we end up replacing that hydrant, we'll plug that barrel, and we note hydrants that we plug so that they don't drain anymore with a black band on the barrel. Currently, we only have 1 of them in our system, which is technically not ours, but we do maintain them up at Hoosick Valley High School, which has a problem with all their hydrants having groundwater in them. We did replace at at just our cost a hydrant there, and we did plug it. So other than that, we really our hydrants are in excellent shape, to be honest. We don't have any problems. They're all in good shape.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, you said there's 367 hydrants in
Correct.
the system, and currently just 2 that are not working?
Correct. One is actually working, but we don't utilize it very often. We don't maintain it, so we just call it out of service.
Got
And
it.
again, so there's hydrants. You normally want to see a hydrant every 350 to 500 feet in a public water system. Both of these hydrants that are out of service One has another brand new hydrant 50 feet away from it, and the other has one maybe 100 feet from it.
And so that seems like a good track record and a good maintenance plan that you have in place. And you mentioned that you had 11 hydrants that were on your brown water list for this year. Is that a typical year, or is that higher than normal?
Actually, it's always a give or take. These hydrants that go on the groundwater list, they change year to year. Some are on there all the time. Hoosick Valley High School has hydrants that are on the groundwater list every year. Lower Linden is actually on there every year. So these hydrants, we already know. We usually, actually, the one in front of the post office is usually one that we have an issue with. For some reason, this year we didn't have an issue with it. But we again, when we work on them hydrants during the summer, we also utilize our leak detection to make sure that anytime that hydrant was used, we data log the noise on the line to make sure that the hydrant is closed properly, and that prevents back siphonage to the public water system. And it also tells us if there's any leaks in the area from damage that could occur to the distribution system during usage. So nobody uses a hydrant within Adams without pulling a permit, including the fire department, and for obvious reasons. Only in the event of an emergency, they obviously don't pull a permit. So we follow up on every hydrant that's utilized in the town of Adams, and that's honestly how we keep everything running as good as it is. And we have a hydrant maintenance program, hydrant replacement program, excuse me. We've been flushing for 5 years now. We started a hydrant maintenance program 3 years ago. Basically, I noted that, within our system, which is kind of unique to Adams, we have Matthews. At this point in time, we have 56 Matthews hydrants that the company is no longer in service. So there's no way to get replacement parts for these hydrants. So we've been replacing usually around 8 to 10 hydrants a year. You can follow what we do with this hydrant program. It is in my superintendent's annual report, which is located within the fire district's annual report. I speak in a little bit extra length of them projects in there. Another interesting thing is in Adams, they didn't put isolation gates on hydrants when they installed all these hydrants, which makes it difficult because when we go to replace a hydrant, you just can't shut that hydrant down and replace it. You have to usually shut down entire sections of town to replace a hydrant. So it is raised the cost of hydrant replacement because I have to replumb the distribution system to put a gate in on a hydrant that will eliminate disturbing the public in future times when hydrant repair or replacements needed. So that's actually added to our cost of our hydrant replacement program, which I usually, we've been level funding it at $35,000 a year for our hydrant replacement program. And again, that's, all the materials. A hydrant typically costs around $2,200 a hydrant. But when you factor in plumbing and everything else, it adds up pretty quick.
All right, John, we'll stay on the hydrant topic, and I'm gonna ask the other members if they have any questions. I'll start with Member Duval, if you have any questions regarding the hydrants.
I do. I just have a couple, John, just to make sure I understand everything correctly. 367 hydrants in service, and they're inspected twice a year, all of them?
Correct.
Wow, pretty good.
I say that that's 367 hydrants that we have in the system that we actively maintain. There are properties in town that have their own private hydrants that we don't maintain, and we actually don't allow them to hook up. So I think there's probably 20 to 25 hydrants, in random properties in town, mostly all the old mill properties. But we actually have them on our list. The fire department has them on a list. We share that list with the fire department. Usually when a hydrant goes down, I call it out of service. Me and John have actually merged the program between our two offices now, so I can actually get on the program and call a hydrant out right from my desk. So we actually have about 20 to 25 hydrants that are private that we do not maintain, and we do not utilize in the course of a fire because we cannot, ensure the integrity of them. And also it's on private property, so you don't want to go altering somebody's, private plumbing. However, it is an issue because they are connected to our public water supply, and hydrants are, a good source for a cross connection. So we are always vigilant on using these. Even when people come in to do flow tests, we make them pull permits and we make them provide flow data, and we oversee the use of every hydrant.
The next question is, you mentioned groundwater it has been an issue for some of these hydrants. How do you describe the issue with groundwater? How's that happen? What's the issue with that?
So when you install hydrants here are wet barrel, dry barrel. And so what happens is, because of the freezing, the water, once you use a hydrant, it has to drain. And so hydrants typically are 5 1/4 feet long, 6 foot long. You can get them all different sizes and lengths. You have to mate them to adapt them to the depths of the main. And when you shut a hydrant down, in the bottom of the hydrant is a chute, and it actually opens the hydrant up to a drainage system that we install when we install the hydrant. It's typically like trap rock and screen to prevent any kind of sediment flowing in and plugging the drainage system. And so once the hydrant's used, you shut it off. That hydrant, we actually usually leave the caps a little loose to allow the air to go in, and it drains the hydrant. The problem is, if it drains the hydrant, you have groundwater. The groundwater gets into the hydrant, and that's how a hydrant freezes in the wintertime. And that's also another reason why we are so thorough in inspecting them, because now if you open a hydrant, you flush a hydrant, and that hydrant doesn't close properly, the water will flow through the hydrant and you'll never see it because it'll drain into the ground. And so that now actually creates a cross connection to the public water supply. So if we left that hydrant unchecked and we had a water break and we isolated an area and drained it, the water that is leaking out of that hydrant that you don't see and into the drainage system, well, that water now goes back into the main, because we create what's called a back siphonage. A lot of people now will plug the barrels, and so it defeats they will not drain after usage, which is a bigger problem, because now if they're not pumped, they can freeze, and it's harder to get a hydrant to pump down right to the shoe so that we can be sure that it's not going to freeze in the winter. That is we are moving towards that. So the list that my data that we maintain and the hydrants that we see are perpetual problems with groundwater. When we do replace them, we will plug them. And so you'll actually start seeing hydrants pop up that are not only colored, so the tops of the hydrants, they're colored, and that denotes the size of the main that they're connected to for flow reasons. Like I said, you'll start seeing black bands pop up on the barrel, and that means that hydrant will not self-drain, so it would be in jeopardy of freezing, so we would have to pump that right down. We also have a camera we stick in that we actually can video the down in the hydrant to make sure that it's not frozen.
Okay, last question, John, is this past winter, were the hydrants cleared by residents around town? I drove around a couple times, and they seem to be, the ones I went by, they seem that the residents were clearing out the snow around the hydrants. Is that something that is still you request that the residents do that?
That's always nice, and the Alert Hose Company always puts on a drive that is excellent for us. That it makes residents want to clear the hydrants out, and for obvious reason, it's in their best interest. But we also do clear the hydrants ourselves with our backhoe. So we go, I would probably say a good 60% of them don't actually get cleared out by residents. There's a lot of snow that, especially ones that are on the corners. So we go out with the backhoe. Hopefully, once a year, you do 367 hydrants. That's a lot of manpower. But you'll see us out there with our backhoe, and we usually have the truck out behind them to push any snow that ends up in the road, and we clear a good spot for the guys to get onto the hydrant. And hopefully it stays open, but we usually do clean the hydrants out ourselves. And in fact, we did do that this year. Not every
Okay.
year do we have to do that, though.
Right, thank you.
Most welcome.
Joe, do you have any questions for John regarding the hydrants?
Yeah, just a few questions. John, thank you so much. Each time I listen to you, you have a keen expertise on what you're doing. Couple of questions. How deep laid are the pipes below grade?
They are, ideally, you would want to see a main no less than 6 feet for obvious reasons of freezing. Unfortunately, they are all over the place in Adams. I've seen mains that are 2 feet deep, which scares me. But for the most part, wherever you see a hydrant, they're usually at least 5 feet deep. But they can range all over the place. There's no rhyme or reason as to the depths of the mains. They're everywhere in this town, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, just quick answers. What's the composite material of most of the pipes?
So we have, it's going to be a mix. We do not allow plastic at all in the town of Adams. So most of our mains will be either cast iron with leaded joints, or they will be ductile iron. And I would probably say that we're probably about 40% ductile and 60% cast.
Okay, and out of curiosity, when a hose is connected to the hydrant, what is the PSI as water is ejected from the hose?
So pressure is induced by elevation. So that's a point of contention that we're actually trying to get a grasp on here in Adams. Unlike a lot of other places, we have 7 different pressure zones in Adams, which is a lot for the size of this town. North Adams has 3. So 7 different pressure zones is a lot of different zones. So you could be at one hydrant, case in point on our last fire on Orchard Street, we had some guys that came in and they had a hydrant and they were at like 40 PSI, and if they had just gone up the street to the very next hydrant, they would have had 150 because they would have been on a different system. So pressure is induced by elevation. So the higher up from your point that you're standing, the tank is, the more pressure. The closer to the elevation of the tank, the less pressure. So as you go up in town to the point of cutoff on our low pressure system, you're not going to have very much pressure. Typically, you won't see anything lower than 50 pounds on a hydrant. That's where we usually will implement a different pressure zone. And then that pressure zone is regulated by, again, the tank of that pressure zone.
Okay, and my last question is having to do with pressure. I know I see your group during the summer months or the warm weather months flushing some of the hydrants. When you pressurize them, like for a fire, is that something that one should worry about the places where the pipes are fused together, where they could break from the pressure?
Yeah, you can absolutely, anytime you open a hydrant, which is why we don't allow anybody to open our hydrants, except for the fire department. When you're opening a hydrant, you're opening the entire distribution system of the town. So if you're flowing a hydrant at, 1,300 gallons a minute, that will create a pressure reduction in the higher elevations because all the water is traveling to that hydrant. When they close the hydrants, which is why, our guys are trained, so water, once you start pulling that kind of water through a whole entire distribution system, and we don't have the best engineered distribution system. The spine of our distribution system travels right down Park Street, and the storage tank is on one side of the town, but the low pressure is scattered all about. So when you're pulling water specifically in Adams, you're pulling it at a long distance, depending on where you are from the tank. And water does not like to stop, just like I would have to explain it as like a train. You stop the train, all the other cars are going to come behind it. And that's the same thing with water. It's actually called water hammers. So when you shut things down, you could have 100 pounds, but it's not uncommon to see 500-600 pounds pressure on the water system, which is why every time a hydrant's utilized, we go in there and we wrap this leak detection equipment on there, and we listen to see if damage was incurred on the distribution system. So that does happen. Future of helping to prevent that, and I'm looking into it now, is they actually make hydrants now that data log pressure 24/7. So I'm looking at trying to get a couple of these hydrants in town, and then so if some event was to happen, these hydrants will actually set off an alarm and alert me that something has happened in the distribution system. There's been some kind of spike that was an issue, and so then I could get my operators out and find out, what's going on in the distribution system.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and keep up the good work. Your expertise is very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, John, I do appreciate that you've called in, and anytime we've asked you to show up and talk about a topic, you have answered the call and done so. I know that the water district and the fire district, don't report to the town. They have the prudential committee, but we've had a great partner in collaboration with you. And I know I mentioned just before we got on this meeting, that there was a water main break in town just about 4 o'clock today, a little before 4. If you could just give a brief status of where that's at and what the time frame would be while we have you.
Yeah, so we are actively repairing that as we speak. So what happened was at 173 Howland, the old Modern Aluminum Anodizing, I believe it was, their fire suppression system froze in the building, causing, and it ruptured. So the people notified me, and so now, that's water loss that we all pay for. So we went to actually shut the gate down to isolate that building, and the gate blew up. So it is actually not our gate, it's their gate, but now the gate has blown apart. That forces us to fix it because now there's no way to isolate it. So what unfortunately happened was we have to shut down the nearest gate and close that end of the main, and so now we've got to repair, the damage that's on his property so that we can get the public water supply back up and running. So currently I think that the guys are probably just about getting ready to put the gate on right now. I'm hoping they are. And then we'll get it bled back out. And then, once a main goes down, before we can put it back on, we got to go through our procedures of testing it for chlorine residual to make sure that It's going to be safe for the public. No cross connections happen. So we'll go through the paces, and I'm hoping that we'll have that back together, in an hour or so.
Okay. Well, even more impressive that you were able to spend some time with us this evening with that happening up on Holland Ave. So I don't want to keep you any longer than we need to.
Yes, excellent. I thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me. It was good to see you guys. Thank you again.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Okay, so we will go down to the next item under new business is the ratification of Finance Director / Town Accountant, Crystal Wojcik. I do have a letter here in front of me from the Town Administrator. I believe Ms. Wojcik is on the call if she wants to be on camera. Oh, there she is. So I will read this letter and then I will turn things over to the Town Administrator to properly introduce you. So dear Chairman Hoyt, I am pleased to advise the Board of Selectmen that subject to the board's ratification as provided in Section 10 of the Town Charter, Ms. Crystal Wojcik has been appointed to the position of Finance Director / Town Accountant. The essential duties of the position remain the same. However, the title change reflects the comprehensive nature of the role as it relates to the town's financial operations and helps better identify it among external partners, such as other municipalities and state agencies. Over the past 2 years, Crystal has worked as a financial assistant in the Community Development Office while attending MCLA, where she will graduate this May with a bachelor's degree in business administration. Her course concentration has been in accounting with dual minors in leadership and economics. Crystal demonstrates a solid understanding of general accounting principles, foundational concepts such as waste, fraud, and procurement in the municipal environment, and how economics affect municipal finance. She is familiar with our accounting system, UNIS, our time and attendance system, RFP process, and other functions that she has been exposed to while in the employ of the town. Crystal has sat in on several financial meetings with me and conducted herself with professionalism and enthusiasm. Frankly, she is a remarkable young woman and impressed her interview panel, which consisted of Mary Beverly, Donna Season, and myself as Town Administrator speaking. Crystal is well aware of the challenges associated with this critical position in town government, and her accomplishments demonstrate she possesses the capability to succeed in it. She will represent the town well and will introduce a contagious energy in the role. I am also pleased to mention that members of our independent auditing firm spent time with Crystal and recommended her for the position and offered to be a resource for her. Mary Beverly will remain available to Crystal as a mentor and has developed a certification and training curriculum so she can become a certified governmental accountant, which is the same accreditation that Mary currently holds. Crystal will begin her duties part-time, 19 hours weekly, until May after graduation, when she will assume the duties full-time. Until then, she will be earning an hourly rate of pay equal to entry-level salary at the grade 14 step 1 rate, which is $67,353 annual. Respectfully submitted, J.R. Green, Town Administrator. Jay, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure tonight to present Crystal. I asked her to join us tonight so she can say hello. I don't need to tell anybody what a critical position this is and what an asset that Mary Beverly has been to the town over her years. Accounting and finance touches almost everything that we do in the town, so this is an important position. Also, simultaneously at the same time, in the last 2 years that I've attended Mass Municipal Conferences, there's been quite the presentation as to finding a younger generation interested in municipal government. Not only at the MMA functions that we've attended or the annual conferences, but also just recently when I attended a municipal finance certificate class, there was a lot of interest in trying to encourage a younger generation of folks to get involved with their government. And speaking with Crystal, and she may speak about that tonight, she was not first inclined when she first started with the town about 2 years ago, really to make a career in municipal government. However, over that 2-year period, and Crystal, I don't want to speak for you, but over that, knowing that I've spoken with you about it, in those 2 years, she's realized really how important it is to be involved with town government, how important it is to have good people in these positions. And thankfully, she saw that. So this is an opportunity for Crystal. It's an opportunity for the town as well. We feel it's a great fit. We worked today through some numbers as well. Mary has not fully departed yet. Mary is on vacation this week. Mary is still maintaining her certification, and there's going to be ample overlap to provide Crystal with the mentorship and the training that she needs. So I'm quite pleased to introduce Crystal to everyone this evening. And Crystal, if you want to say a few words, please feel free.
Yeah, thank you, Christine, and thank you, Jay. I am honored to be in the running for this position. I am excited to be the person who is chosen to be ratified for the role. I've already learned so much in my first week of working with Jay and Mary, and like Jay said, over my last 2 years with the town, I've truly come to love working for a small town and for a small community, and being able to have hands in all of the departments and get to know everybody and know everything that's going on. And I truly do feel prepared by my education and my background for this position. I'm well versed in leadership, and my accounting concentration has been my focus of my college education for the last 3 years. And I'm on track to sit for the exam to get the same certification as Mary, and I'm excited to be here.
Great. Thank you so much, Crystal. So we have a matter of business in front of us this evening to ratify this appointment. If anyone would like to make that motion, and then we can open.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to ratify the appointment of Crystal Wojcik to the position of Finance Director / Town Accountant.
I have a motion by John. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion from any members of the board?
I just had a couple of questions for Crystal. First of all, congratulations, Crystal. I think you're going to get the votes. I was just wondering, one quick question. You mentioned that leadership courses. What does that entail? I'm just curious. What kind of courses entail leadership? What could you tell me just a little bit about that?
Of course. So my leadership minor focuses a lot on managing a team or managing a group of people, how to do that effectively, how to effectively communicate with the team that you are leading, and how to ensure that your people can put trust in you, how you should present yourself as a leader. One of my positions at the college as Student Activities Council President has been managing a group of 12 people for the last 3 years. And I've also been able to get course credit through that role and done a couple projects in that role through that class. So mainly the leadership minor focuses on being able to manage people and work effectively with other people.
Okay, thank you. And does that incorporate communicative courses?
Yep. One of the courses I did take was called Communication and Leadership, and it's just talking about how to professionally relay information to people. It talks about the importance of confidentiality when you're in a leadership role. It talks about the importance of how to ensure that your followers understand what you need them to do, and how to make sure that they feel comfortable asking questions if they don't know what it is that you need to do, or if they need you to clarify something for them.
Okay, and just lastly for a comment, I've known Crystal for quite some time. I substituted, as I think everyone knows, I bring it up quite often. And Crystal was certainly a top-notch student up at the school. There's no doubt about it. So best of luck, kiddo.
Thank you, Joe.
Great.
I'm not sure if they offer courses in dealing with the old guard of the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the town meeting members, but trial by fire, I imagine, coming up, but we'll be right there. It's always great to see someone that has gone through our school district and be successful. And I've seen this many times in my place of employment and others. And it's great to see that we have yourself, someone that's gone through our school system, is a local individual and is able to find a good job and stay in the area. So that's definitely a plus. And I'm certain you're going to do great for the town of Adams for many years to come.
And Crystal, I've had the pleasure to get to know you over the last couple of years as you've been working for the town of Adams, and you've always demonstrated your professionalism through all of those interactions and your interactions with the public. I'm excited that you thought to start your career, and hopefully it'll be a long career with the town of Adams. So very happy to have you in front of us. And there was a very nice article that iBerkshires has done. And I know that there are several people in town who have stopped me and said, oh gosh, you're so lucky that Crystal Wojcik is going to be working for the town of Adams, and they're very excited. So you do have a reputation in town. Seems like a lot of your teachers and school administrators have reached out and said that we have a winner here. So we just want to make sure that you got that feedback as well, because people have made a point to stop me. So if there's
That-
no other, if
That
there's
won't
no
be
other-
like that in the next budget cycle, though, when it's Crystal's budget.
So if there's no other discussion, this is a roll call vote on the ratification of Crystal Wojcik. John,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
it is a yes from Christine. So that is unanimous, and welcome aboard officially.
Thank you so much to Christine and the rest of the board. I am so excited to be a part of the team in the town of Adams.
And we hope you're ready for budget season, because we're about to get started.
Already in the middle of it.
Thank you.
We went page by page. Well, we went almost page. We went through at least a good 50% of it today. Crystal's had some quick primers on Proposition 2.5 and some other things. So we're working away as we can. And Mary's checking in periodically, even though Mary's retired. I assure you, she's not that far away. And Crystal will be present for all our finance committee meetings and all of our selectmen meetings with the budget. And I started a budget season. It's a great way to learn, frankly, in there. So the timing is, although it's slightly challenging, I give Crystal credit for finishing her education and willing to take this on at the same time. And we'll make it work. We had a good plan, and we'll tweak it if need be.
Thank you. If the board will indulge me, I see that Aaron Girgenti is on this call. If we could move item E up to the next item. It is the Zoning Board of Appeals appointment of Aaron. I just want to make sure, I mean, we're 45 minutes in and I didn't want to hold off on that any longer. Is the board okay with moving that? Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Then we'll move, so we have the Zoning Board of Appeals appointment of Aaron Girgenti. Aaron has written a letter. Thank you, Aaron, for getting on camera. There's a letter here in our packet. Dear Chairman Hoyt and fellow board members, as a lifelong resident of Adams and a town meeting member, I hope to further serve my community by filling a position on the Adams Zoning Board. As a small business owner with 25 years of experience in the trowel trades and a licensed general contractor, I feel that I will be able to offer a working knowledge of the field and my communication skills when working with the public. Additionally, I feel that I can be fair and impartial when addressing issues that may come before the board. I aim to see our community grow, and I'd like to be part of that. Thank you for your consideration. Kindly submitted, Aaron Girgenti of Precinct 5. And there was a letter of support from Building Commissioner Jerry Garner that was also in your packets. Just to let the board know, I know at the last meeting, I mentioned that when we did appoint another member to the ZBA, that there was a vacancy and an anticipated vacancy. So this seat would be filling the vacancy of Brian Tenzar, who will be stepping off of the Zoning Board of Appeals, in which I'd like to thank Brian for his service to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but this would be filling that seat. So with that, I don't know if there's a motion from the board, and then we can open up for discussion to then talk with Aaron.
I'd be happy to make a motion to appoint Aaron Girgenti as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I have a
And
motion.
I also would like to thank Mr. Tenzar for his time. He did an admirable job while he was there.
Thank you. I have a motion by Joe. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by John. Any discussion?
Just one quick comment. I've known Aaron for quite some time. He's a very capable person. He's a great contractor, does great work, and I think he'll be a valuable addition to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you for that endorsement, Joe.
And I agree, Madam Chair. I think the last two meetings, we've had two outstanding individuals, well qualified. So it's really exciting to have these, to have Aaron join this, the board. So I'll make a motion. Oh, we're having a motion, right?
You did. Yep.
Okay, I'm good.
You're okay. All right. If there's no further discussion, I will call for a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes?
It is a yes from Christine, so that is unanimous. Aaron, I don't know if there's anything you want to say at this point. You've been holding on for 48 minutes.
And he almost had two motions, Aaron.
No, I just want to say thank you. I'm excited to jump on board, and thank you very much. This is going to be exciting.
Thank you for applying and saying that you wanted to step forward. So we appreciate that. So you'll just need to get sworn in by the town clerk, and they'll put you right to work, is my understanding.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Okay. So that'll bring us back up to item C under new business, which is the designation of special municipal employee. There is a request from the Conservation Commission to designate the position of wetlands consultant as a special municipal employee. And then there's more information about the appointment to that wetlands consultant for item number D. But the first item of business, and I can read the memo that came from Donna Season, who's the special projects coordinator, to just explain both items C and D. So this memo says, to assist in its review of compliance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Adams Conservation Commission has engaged Hill Engineers. Hill will be conducting an independent review of the notice of intent submittals by Bowler Engineering on behalf of Cumberland Farms Incorporated. Hill has partnered with wetland scientist Emily Stockman to conduct the review. To fill this need, and in light of Ms. Stockman's representation of private individuals before the town, the Conservation Commission requests the board designate Emily Stockman as wetlands consultant to the Conservation Commission and the position of wetlands consultant to the Conservation Commission as a special municipal employee, consistent with Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, the Conflict of Interest Law. As a reminder, special municipal employee status can be assigned to certain municipal positions by a vote of the Board of Selectmen. If you are a special municipal employee, you may represent private parties before municipal boards, provided that you have not officially participated in the matter and the matter is not now and was not within the past year within your official responsibility. So as I mentioned, there are two actions for the board to take this evening, if the board should choose to. The first item is to designate the position of wetlands consultant as special municipal employee. And the second item would then be the appointment of the wetlands consultant.
A question for Attorney St. John. Is everything good here? You agree?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. I know as a retainer, the Conservation Commission has been using Bill Luttrell, and I know that he has been with the Conservation Commission for quite some time. Was he aware of this?
Mr. Luttrell declined the position.
Okay. And then I'd like to say that I've known Emily for quite some time. Her father-in-law, Ed Stockman, was certainly one of the persons that I learned quite a bit about wetlands early on in my 30-year tenure with the Conservation Commission. Emily's highly regarded, very knowledgeable about wetlands, and she'd be just the person to do it. So if we need a motion, the motion first was stated as what?
The motion is to designate the position of wetlands consultant to the Conservation Commission as special municipal employee.
Okay, I'll make that motion as was stated by the chairman.
Okay? Do I
I'll
have a second?
second.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, it is a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
It is a yes from Christine, so that is unanimous. And then the second item would be the appointment of wetlands consultant to the Conservation Commission to Emily Stockman.
I'll make a motion to, as a special employee, the position of a wetland consultant to the Conservation Commission under the auspices of a special municipal employee.
Can you please state the person's name in your motion?
Emily Stockman.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion by Joe. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to quickly say that it's very important that we have a specialist as a wetland consultant, because any move that we make that's incorrect, working through general law, could cost our town a lot of money and a lot of headaches. So I'm happy that we have Emily going to come on board. She's very knowledgeable and well respected in the environmental community.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this appointment? Okay. Hearing none, it is a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
It is a yes from Christine, so that is unanimous. And either Deb or Jay, if one of you can be in touch with Donna to make sure that she is in touch with Emily to make sure she gets sworn in by the town clerk, that would be wonderful. Item number F on your agenda was the appointment of special town council. I am asking the board this evening to table this matter. There's a little bit more work that needs to be done before this comes before the Board of Selectmen. The matter that was in question is no longer, well, it's not imminent. And we would just want to explore to make sure that there's no conflicts. But initially there may have been a conflict for our town council, and we were seeking outside counsel to help us with a possible lease agreement. But this can be waited on, so I'm just hoping that the board would be would entertain the possibility of tabling this at this time.
I'll make a motion to table the appointment of special town council Jeff Grandchamp.
Okay, I have a motion by John. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I'll second by Joe. Any discussion?
Are we going to put a timetable on the time that we're going to table it? Will this come up again in the near future?
It might.
It might. Okay.
Yep, that's the piece we're trying to iron out.
All right.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, it is a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
It is a yes from Christine, so that is unanimous. That brings us to department reports. And at this point, I will turn things over to the town administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. As always, I'll start off with a COVID-19 public health update. As you can see, we made a significant drop last week from being considered in the yellow by the Department of Public Health. We're now in the gray. I think it's important just to remind everybody that those numbers are based on the positivity rates of COVID-19 in the community. As those figures drop and as the DPH drops us lower, we're able to open and move around more within the business community. It's important to know that those numbers, again, are based on, frankly, at the end of the day, individual behavior. So we've said it before, but the best way to keep us in the gray is to mask up, wash your hands, and socially distance as much as possible, and get vaccinated as soon as you're eligible. Those are the best tools to fight this, to keep our numbers down and to keep the community safe. We really don't know from week to week at this point what those numbers are going to be. It's quite possible that those numbers may even go up into the green for at the end of tomorrow's close of business. But the best way to do that is remain vigilant, stay cautious, and take the safe course when possible. In terms of the vaccinations, we're doing very well as a region, and I think we're doing incredibly well as a Northern Berkshire, the 8 communities up in Northern Berkshire. Unfortunately, the only reason why we're not having more people vaccinated is simply the same issues that you hear in the national news or even the regional news, which is vaccine supply. However, I am proud to announce that this Friday, we will be the Northern Berkshire Regional Planning Commission COVID Vaccination Center will end up being the first clinic to offer the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in the Berkshires. So we're going to have a dual clinic on Friday. We'll be offering both second dose Pfizer for those folks who are already vaccinated with first dose, and we'll be administering the single dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine on Friday. And we anticipate anywhere from 800 to about 1,000 people from there. We as a working group continue to figure out ways to squeeze more people, frankly, through that clinic and vaccinate more people. We have plans in place that we think we can probably hit somewhere between 1,000 to 1,200 people in an 8-hour day. But like anything else, it depends on labor and it depends on vaccine availability. It's no different than anywhere else. But we are making a difference. We're making an impact, and keep your fingers crossed with more vaccine available. We'll keep going ahead. The governor did announce today that he was expanding eligibility now to educators, anyone that works in the schools. So that has now added an entirely other larger group to the eligible participants. So these appointments, as they become available, there'll be demand for them. We're now vaccinating the groups available were first responders, a variety of medical folks, first level medical folks, as well as 75 plus, as well as 65 plus, and folks with certain illnesses and diseases. So there's now a lot of folks all competing for the vaccine. But again, as the vaccine supply opens up, we feel that we in the Berkshires throughout the entire 3 vaccination centers have enough capacity to be able to administer the vaccine. Moving on to some economic development work, I can tell you folks that our long-awaited marijuana cultivator on Howland Avenue, LC Squared, Donna and I met with him today. They're continuing to move ahead. They anticipate some type of an opening later this year, probably early fall, maybe late summer. But often people were asked, we've talked about this for a while, what's happening. I think Art would be happy for me to report tonight. They're continuing to improve the building, perform construction work on the building. And when he's ready, I'm sure that he'll be happy to come in front of the board, as well as reach out to local media and let everybody know what his timeline looks like, et cetera. Although we've had a lot of meetings this week with economic development projects, we really can't discuss any of them because they're all in the early stages, but I feel it's important to let the community know and the board know that there's a lot of interest in the town of Adams, and it's quite uplifting and it's quite energizing to be fielding different phone calls about different properties, et cetera. So there's a lot of interest in Adams, and we're trying to frankly reap the wild wind and try to get some of these projects to stick. As you know, the RFP is out for Adams Memorial School, and Donna and I were speaking today. She should have the RFP out for the 20 East Street, the former community center building. That should be out by the end of this week as well. You folks traveling inbound and outbound from the town on Route 8 on Commercial Street may have noted a little bit longer days and some longer stretches of single lane operation. If you may recall, at last year's town meeting appropriated $217,000 for our free cash account in order to perform sewer improvement work along that corridor. That was the work that's non-covered by Mass DOT or any of the federal grant programs for that work. The town had to fund that. That is that work that you see with the, I can't think of the name of the firm, begins with an I, Institutiform, I think is the name. But that is the work that you see on that strip of roadway, and they should be wrapped up probably by the end of this week on that. We are monitoring very carefully at the town exactly what will happen at the federal level in terms of additional funding. You may be hearing a lot of conversation about this legislation that's going to be passed by Congress in terms of local and state aid. We have no idea what that means. We have no idea how it could impact our budget in fiscal 22. We don't know how we can use it. We just frankly don't know a lot yet. So we're hoping to get that information soon. That's about all I have tonight for my report.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions? John, do you have anything for Jay?
Yeah, Jay, in regards to the vaccinations for educators, have you heard anything in regards to the pharmacies being able to receive the some Federal Reserve vaccinations to have educators go to the pharmacies?
No, nothing specific. So that's interesting. The only thing I did think I read today on Standard Media was there was some conversation about sending more vaccine to pharmacies and allowing educators to go there, but where that was coming from, I don't know. I'll let you know if I do hear anything.
Okay,
I think it's March 11th per the governor's announcement. Next Thursday, I think they'll become eligible. So like this Friday, this clinic, the first doses, the J&J only dose, frankly, will only be eligible for the existing open eligibility groups.
all right, thanks.
Joe, any questions for Jay?
Yes, I do. I noticed in a notice in the Berkshire Eagle, there are going to be the Zoning Board of Appeals is going to be hearing from someone who wants to put, and I'm not sure, is it a cultivation plant in the industrial park?
Yes, that would be the John Burke property, Burke Construction. There, it has to go in front of the zoning board for a zoning variance application next week.
But that is a cultivation?
Yes, I might, Joe, I think it's actually both. I think they have
Okay.
a retail component in the former station, the Renfrew Station building, and the cultivation would be in the garage area.
Okay, great. I know that you mentioned about the work going on. What about, have you been able to contact the person that rented the space from Ronnie Cycle? They were the first to show interest in medical marijuana, and then I'm sure they would want to have done recreational marijuana. Where are we at with those people? I know I've asked this before. Has anybody been in contact to see what their plans are, if they plan on moving forward or not?
Yeah, so we have no contact. They're just not responsive at this time. In fact, we've had, I can tell you, we have well, as the board knows from conversations with me, we've had a lot of inquiries about marijuana, mostly marijuana manufacturing, cultivating, et cetera. And we actually mentioned that property to people, saying, reach out to this group and see if you'd like to take it over for retail operations. So no, not at this time, unfortunately.
Okay. A few other things. You had made a little mention of it, your last statement on your report. Tomorrow, I believe it's from 4 to 5, MMA is having a webinar about tracking monies from the stimulus money, should they go forward for municipalities. Is that something that you could get in on that webinar tomorrow from 4 to 5 to see how they're going to be able to track that money? Because I know that's one of the topics, and it's going to be very important that we know when and how the money's going to go. I know, as you mentioned, you're absolutely correct. Right now, it's just anybody's guess. But if we can, hear as things fall into place, I think it would be quite an advantage for us.
Been on my calendar for a week. I'm on it.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Another thing, too, is I'm still after a weekly report from Kim Whittick regarding her duties as both animal control officer and taking care of the meters. Once again, it was of interest to me to see what she's been doing, and I've asked, and I haven't received any answer yet.
That is correct. I have asked Chief Kelly to look into that for you and develop a pattern or a concept or some type of a form that works out well. and he's been on vacation for the last week in the process of his move. So I've asked him to take a look at it. He and I will likely catch up sometime tomorrow or Friday, and I'll see where that's at for you, Joe.
Okay, and lastly, I got something on email today about we've been notified of our excess cash.
Free cash.
Yeah, free cash, and I wish that I don't have the number clearly, but I wish that you could make that announcement.
So as of right now, the Massachusetts Department of Revenue has certified for fiscal year 20. Remember, so we're going into
Yeah.
fiscal year 22, so we use the 2-year back free cash number. So that number for this year should be $839,294. Unfortunately, that number could be slightly higher, but we have, according to the sheet, and I do have to do some more research, so just be advised that I haven't, this came in late this afternoon, so I haven't had a full chance to review it. Mary and I were texting back and forth. Crystal and I talked about it. But there's $623,743 that comes off our grand total of $1.3 million due to outstanding real estate taxes. So
Okay.
I have to take a look at that number and speak with the treasurer collector and see exactly what impact that is. There's always a percentage of unpaid real estate tax every year, but at this point, that number's creeping up. And in fact, the Department of Revenue mentioned, just to take a look at it. I can't tell you how larger that is compared to last year. I don't have last year's numbers. So I could be barking up a tree that's not needed. But FYI, we had about 1.3 million as an undesignated fund balance, and we're certified for 839. That 839 in and of itself, I can tell you, is consistent with the past years. It's a good number. Shows that we have some solid budgeting. We normally let some free cash stay as free cash, and then we use a portion of that, as you folks know, for a capital program. So we've been waiting for this so that we can put together a capital program. We've already identified some funds that we needed from this. So I don't think we'll have a robust or a pretty deep capital program this year. But Mary and I were pleased with the number for sure. And we'll keep you in the loop as we go finalizing the budget. That's my last thing, actually. No changes in the budget since the last time I presented anything to the board. This was some of the last information we're looking for. I'll be in touch soon with some of our next steps as we move forward.
And lastly, I said lastly before, but this just is on the same vein. What about our cherry sheet? I saw part of it, but there was no monies in it as far as funding the education.
Yeah,
at
it
the
never
time
is.
I saw it.
Yeah, it doesn't, Joe, because we're you have to, when you go back into that DLS DOR webpage, the chapter 70, all the school funding is a separate, you have to go in as Hoosick Valley District, a shared district.
Okay.
They don't attach it to either of the communities.
Okay, well then I'll see what I can do to check that out. Okay, thank you very much, Jay.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, one other thing I did forget to mention, Joe, you and I spoke last Thursday about salt usage and overtime. We're in the black, thankfully, on both line items. Salt usage, we budget about 235 grand a year. We have just about $90,000 left and the shed's half full. So keep your fingers crossed. We're doing well. As long as we don't get any more of these nuisance storms with some slick spots, we should be good. Overtime is in the black. We budget about 90,000 for DPW overtime. Right now, notwithstanding one of the payroll runs that hasn't been computed yet, we got about 40,000 left in the DPW overtime. So we're in the black. We're doing pretty well. We'll continue to monitor it.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see those numbers broken down when the time is sufficient. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. We'll move on to town council report.
Thank you. I received the Attorney General's ruling on an open meeting law complaint that was made by a private citizen against the Board of Health. The complaint charged that the code enforcement officer was sending emails to board members, thereby deliberating in violation of the open meeting law, and that the Board of Health was muting the complainant during a hearing concerning her. The Attorney General's office concluded that there was no violation of the open meeting law in either instance. I was also asked by the Board of Health to review the recently enacted tobacco regulations and advise whether they superseded the 2014 tobacco regulations. This was necessitated by the permit application that was before the board concerning the original Seed Cigar Lounge. I concluded that the current regulations explicitly superseded and replaced the 2014 regulations, and so advised the board and the permit applicant. And lastly, I continue performing work on a pending action for judicial review, also involving the Board of Health. That's all.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions for town council? John?
All set.
Joe?
No questions?
Okay. Appreciate your work, Ed.
You're welcome.
Okay, that brings us to subcommittee and liaison reports. John?
So we met, the budget subcommittee met with the school district officials to get a very preliminary look at their budget. The superintendent of schools was there, and representation from the school board, and also from the accounting office, their business director. Jay, did you want to add some specifics in regards to that meeting?
Sure, I can just say that we had a good group of people assembled. Frankly, all of the key individuals that contribute to those conversations. As John said, we have Mr. Burdick from the Finance Committee Chair. He was present. We had Mr. Mike Mucci from the School Committee present to go over all the numbers. Every year this is only my second year through, frankly, on a third year, I guess, on a budget. And every year it's a tug of war. We have to make some hard decisions, but those decisions, the process of making those decisions become somewhat more, I don't want to say easier, but certainly more palatable, simply because you had all the right people in the right room with an open and honest discussion. So it was a good conversation. It comes down to what the town can afford, what the school district can afford. And at the end of the day, if the school district isn't able to achieve funding from outside sources, such as Chapter 70 or other grant funds, it looks back to its two funders, Cheshire and Adams. Well, we don't have much discretion in terms of how that formula is applied. It's a state formula, and our hands are tied. It can change. Some years it's good, some years it's bad. So, that's some editorial, commentary on it. But we have three suggestions from the school district that we're looking at. We've computed them, and that's kind of where we're at in terms of with that number.
So when can the full board of selectmen expect to begin to their budget workshops? I assume we're going to be meeting with the finance committee at the same time. Is that true?
We can. We did that last year. It certainly saves time. It certainly puts everybody together in it. We don't have a lot of growth in Adams. So our operating budget hasn't changed, dramatically over the years. We're by no means broke, but we certainly don't have a lot of growth that allow us to add, positions. Most of the operating budgets are all level funded. In fact, I believe off the top of my head, we've been able to reduce the operating budget a little bit this year. Our personnel costs, thankfully, this year, the only additional costs are standard cost of living increases, step increases for employees that have been with us for a while and move up in the compensatory chart, and your natural cost of living increases on insurance and things like that. There's not a lot to discuss. What we're spending capital on, a couple of decisions like that. So we could certainly do it all together. The chairman and I are trying to come up with logistics so that there's maybe a way we can do it in person rather than do it remote. We also have to just look at the health implications of that, no different than last year. Dare I say we're a little bit more versed this year in how to go about doing that. I would anticipate it's March 3rd. I would think by the end of the month, we have to do one more budget subcommittee meeting, and probably I'll try to get you a finalized budget. I'm waiting for Mary to come back. I have a couple questions for her on a few minor changes. I want to look at some of our capital wish lists, take a look at this free cash number. I would say by the end of the month, we'll definitely be ready for another budget subcommittee meeting. And then the full board and or finance committee can get it moving into very early April.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Joe, anything for subcommittee and liaison report?
Yes, I do. We had a Zoom meeting, the full membership of the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership. It was well attended. The committees were formed. Last meeting, public meeting, I mentioned the 5 committees. I won't mention again, other to state that I was put on the Education, Outreach, and Research Committee, and we're going to start working together as a group to formulate our priorities and how we're going to move forward. Also, there'll be in a week or two, so keep your eyes open. There's going to be, once again, the $20,000 grants put out for member communities in the partnership. So that should be coming anytime within the next week or two to apply for $20,000. And also, we're in the process of getting a representative from the federal government to be on our board. That's part of our commitment, was state and federal togetherness, kind of. And that's going to take a little time because of the way the federal government needs to appoint somebody. So that should be down the road, and that will make us complete. And that's just about all I have as far as my subcommittee report.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Announcements and good of the order. John?
I'm all set. I'm good.
Okay, Joe?
Yes, I would just like to know, I made a question, and I asked about the large brick building along Center Street. One day I was behind there and the doors were broken in, so I reported it to Jerry, and Jerry said, well, I don't know if we can go there, but he found out that's in tax taking. So we own that Behemoth building. It's a nice building. What are we going to do with all of these buildings that we're starting to acquire because of tax taking? Because the more they're in our pocket, the less, of course, we're getting no taxes, and we have to take care of them for safety reasons. So I think it's time that I'd like to see a list of what we own and what our, future plans are for these buildings. I mean, that's a very large building that we now own. That I don't know, what are we going to do with these buildings? All I can think is we're lacking parking. That'd be, some good public parking there. You could put a lot of cars in there, but I don't, we got to start thinking of, what we're going to do with these buildings, because they just become albatrosses around our neck unless we can, pawn them off to somebody who wants to put an exorbitant amount of money and think they can make a go of it with them. So that's my announcement, and pretty good of the order, I'll put it.
I believe that Jay would like to respond to that.
Okay.
So that's the first I've heard of that particular building. And Attorney St. John can jump in if I misspeak, but just because a building is in tax title doesn't mean the town legally owns the building. There's a legal process that the treasurer collector has to file and indicate our intentions, which essentially puts a lien on the property. And then there's a secondary step where the treasurer collector decides to have a legal action, which essentially transfers ownership to the town. Then in normal times, the treasurer collector will list all those buildings, and presumably in collaboration with other town staff will make a determination as to what buildings the town would keep or do something with, or normally auction them off. The idea is that the public should not own those buildings. We're only taking them due to the lack of payment of taxes, and then they're auctioned off. I can also tell you that we generally, or the treasurer collector, and Kelly's far better explaining this than I am, but essentially we wait a period of time to exhaust all legal rights to the building. And then they're grouped together and auctioned off in one shot because it costs the town money in order to hire an auctioneer, et cetera. So we can certainly find out specifically, Joe, what the exact legal status is of that building. But your questions are good, and perhaps we should have the treasurer collector attend a workshop in the future and see exactly like what buildings do we have in that status. Ed, I don't know if there's something you wanted to add or if I misspoke there about the
Well,
process.
I would like to ask Ed something if I could. If there's a lien on the building, does that give permission for, as I mentioned, there was doors broken in and there was free access into the building in two of the apartment spaces. And I went to see Jerry, and Jerry says, oh, we taken that by tax. So if you have a lien on something, do you have the ability to go onto that property and put plywood over doors that are open? Or does it have to be taken through taxes? I don't know the difference between a lien and a tax taking.
Well, the fact that it's either in tax taking or a lien is on the property doesn't give the town necessarily the right to do it without getting a court order. In a situation like this, if it presents a hazard as violations under the state sanitary code, that's typically enforced through an action in the housing court. So that would probably be the direction that this should go to. I would think that the code enforcement officer would be looking into it to determine whether that can be done, and I'd be happy to institute an action in housing court to get that enforced.
Well, I just want to say that I went behind there and somebody went in there, and I imagine it's somebody from the town because it's plywooded over the two doors, which I'm happy about because I just don't think it's great if firemen get in there or any other things that get into a building. It certainly isn't helpful, but they are boarded up now. That was the reason I asked.
Anything else for announcements into the order, Joe?
Nope.
Okay. So just finally, an announcement here. I just wanted to remind folks of the Town of Adams election calendar. March 8th is coming up quickly. That is the deadline for incumbent town meeting members to notify the town clerk that they are candidates for re-election. March 15th at 5 p.m. is the deadline for all candidates, except for the incumbent town meeting members, to submit their nomination papers. March 31st at 5 p.m. is the deadline to withdraw or object to nomination papers. April 13th at 8 p.m. is the deadline to register to vote in the town election. And April 26th at 5 p.m. is the deadline for filing initial campaign finance report. And that report period ends 10 days before the deadline. So your last election date of April 16th, 2021. And the town election is on May 3rd, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So just wanted to make sure that I reminded folks of that. If there's somebody watching this evening, we're on this call who is interested in running for any of the open seats, please contact the town clerk, 743-8300 extension 176. Make an appointment to get your papers. If you are looking for a list of the seats that are open or will be on the ballot, please go to the town's website. With that, if there's nothing else to come before the Board of Selectmen this evening, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion by John. Do I have a second?
Just a quick question before I second that. Is there any plans for a workshop meeting this Wednesday?
I will notify the board probably tomorrow or Monday. I do need to just touch base with the town administrator and see what business there might be and where we stand with attendance. So please stay tuned.
Okay, thank you. I'll second the motion to adjourn.
Okay. And this is a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
It is yes from Christine, so it is unanimous, and we are officially adjourned at 8:26 p.m. I'd like to thank everybody for attending this evening and for tuning in.